super cold over. So anyway, we finally got our fucking fence put in, and I thought that was going to be, and it really was a pretty painless experience. But
because you guys didn't have to do anything. Somebody came and installed it for you.
Sure. But I thought that it was going to be one of those, I like hands off kind of thing. And it was like 99%. It was. So they show up there, and it's a crew of people, and there's 5 of them, and they show up with this truck. It's like a real shitty truck. And I was thinking, like, that's not where we bought our, it's like a 1980 Ford F-250 with a flatbed and the bumpers hanging off. I'm like, that's not, but whatever, don't judge a book by its cover. The crew shows up. None of them speak English except for the crew lead. That's not their actual crew lead. He's just a guy covering for their actual crew lead. And this dude speaks like 80% good English. So, and I speak like 2% good Spanish, shitty Spanish. I speak 2% shitty Spanish. I can ask where the bathroom is, and I need a beer. That's it. Which is probably that's like about 2% of the language. I don't really know anything about the Spanish language, but so I'm like talking to the guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna, the fence. Where's the fence gonna go?" And I'm like, "Dude, don't you know? Like, didn't they tell you where my fence is?" I don't feel like I need to be tapping this conversation with you, dude. Don't you have the things?
Yeah,
but it's a good
schematics you had looked at.
Well, so they had the schematics, but they were a little bit wrong because we have a gate on the front of our garage because the fence kind of comes out from our garage and then goes back toward the backyard. They had 2 gates, one right at the edge of the garage and then one right at the edge of the house, like a fucking airlock, like they were doing an airlock. So I was like, no, we don't need 2 of those. We only need 1. And so we're like explaining, I'm like, oh, this and that. And we're only talking about fence stuff. And he goes, hey, what do you know about financing a car? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, you pay the bank pays for it, then you pay the bank for it. And he goes, oh yeah, because my car's kind of fucking up, and I want to get rid of it. And I just don't know how that works. And I'm like, is this part of the deal? Like, it's just, I'm a first time homeowner. Is this what you do when you get a fence? You talk about how to be an adult with the fence man.
Yeah. They're just like, this is a dad. Let me ask him dad questions about.
I guess, which is God. I give that impression out now when I walk around. They're like, that dude's a dad. I've reached that age where they're like, he's the father of something.
Is it the age or the shape, or
it's probably both?
This guy knows his way around a weed whacker.
Zing! That's the thing though, with my current shape, if I saw me walking around, I would go, that dude does not go outside. Oh, maybe that's why he was asking me if I was into finances. I don't know. Yeah. But so I give him like the the bare bones, like, well, you find a car you can't afford, and then you have the bank afford it, and then you afford it through the bank.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh yeah, well, what if I want to sell that car, but I still owe money on it? And I'm like, well, they're gonna
take that money from
they're gonna give you a value of the car, and you're gonna have to put the difference on your loan. He goes, oh yeah, because I was thinking about getting like a scat pack or something. I'm like, all right, man, so I think my fence goes here and there's a concrete pad right there. And he's like, oh, there's a pad there. I'm like, yeah, they told me it wasn't a problem. He goes, well, it is a problem. And I was like, what the fuck? So they had to go get the hammer drill that they left at the shop, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so they're like, they're making good time. They're getting like halfway through it. And I'm kind of pacing around the house because I'm just excited we're getting a fence, but I don't want to be like, walking around my yard with my hands behind my back looking like I'm from a southern state watching my sugar cane get harvested. So I'm like hiding in the basement playing video games and shit. And we got the new Xbox that day, so I was downloading shit on that. And I go upstairs to get some water, and I hear a knock on the door, and it's the crew lead again. And I walk outside, and he's like, hey, I need you to do me a favor. And I'm thinking, what? And he goes, I need you to tell me if I need stitches or not. And I was like, what? So they have this guide that goes on top of the fence from post to post. And that's where they line the planks up with.
Yeah.
that had fallen off and beamed this guy in the noggin. And
Oh my
he was
God.
like, I'm bleeding. And I'm like, you should probably go get that. It's a head injury, you know? And he's like, well, can you just look real quick? And I was like, and he got fucking thick Latin hair on his head. And
So
so
now they think you're a medical doctor.
now
by
they think
the
I'm a
way.
fucking emergency doctor. Silly.
This guy is super white. He knows everything.
He knows everything. So I'm like, man, I'm not a doctor. I put a band-aid on it, you know. But other than that, you know, I'd go to the urgent care thing. And he's like, yeah, you think I should? I'm like, well, I mean, and I was kind of like looking at it a little bit, and I didn't get any blood on my hands. Thank God. Last thing I want is like happen. Not that they normally carry, but you never know.
You don't know what other people are carrying around.
You don't know what other people are carrying. So at any rate, I'm like, yeah, you're bleeding, you know, and I'm like, you feel dizzy? He goes, yeah, I got hit in the head. I'm like, well, then fuck you, dude. Go to the hospital. I don't know. Jesus Christ. So
See
he's like,
the
okay.
progress of your fence. They're like, well, maybe you're fine. Just
finish the fence and head to the hospital. That's what I recommend.
Last thing I wanted was the dude to turn pale and pass out. And so I'm like, dude, you should probably go. And he's like, well, I'm gonna call my boss. And I'm like, okay. So I just excuse myself from the situation. I don't know what to do. The dude's refusing medical treatment, you know? That's his God-given right.
Yeah.
So I just went back inside and we finished the project. And the fence works. It's great. It looks good.
I need you to tell me if I need stitches or not.
Yeah, it's like, what kind of fucking question is that? So we've discussed how to buy a car and basic medical advice. I don't know.
The third question, they're gonna knock on the door and be like, so like kind of thinking about getting a divorce, like
You know, like any good divorce attorneys or anything, you know, like a long stay hotel in the area. Speaking of hotels, you should have gotten one last weekend in Monaco for the GP.
Oh
yeah, if I had sold all of my organs on the black market, maybe I could have afforded that.
Well, your organs might have been there. Your kidney would have made it, but you didn't. Anyway, this is the Tire Preference Podcast. I am Jake, here with Tyler and Dave, and we got some stuff to talk about because we're doing a race recap.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
One of the big ones. But first, boys, let's talk about what we're drinking today. So I guess Tyler, why don't you hit it off? Ooh,
High West Campfire. I know this is backyards, but this is their double rye.
Getting in on that whiskey again, eh?
Yeah, I pulled it off the shelf. I was really hoping to find High West Campfire out here. It's very smoky and very delicious. But they didn't, so I went with double rye, and it's not disappointing. So it's pretty good. I like it.
Nice.
And a bubbly to wash it down.
And a bubbly.
Blah blah. So Dave, what are you tugging on over there?
Oh, well, I didn't have anything at first, and then I asked my wife so graciously this morning while I was working if she could run up and grab me some brews, and
let's give a quick round of applause for Annie.
Yes, thank you. They're giving you a round of applause. Anywho, the she picked a winner.
Okay.
Welcome back.
So you guys froze mid me explaining my beer. You guys are both doing your round of applause. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna keep talking, and then you guys still were, and then next thing I know, bloop, bloop, knocked me out and then brought me back. So,
all right, well, why don't you pick up where you left off? Tell us about that beer, Dave.
Where do you guys hear any of it? I just put it back in the recycle bin because it was an empty can.
No, we didn't hear any of it.
Nope, you froze with this.
Like I said, the one picked a winner. It's called 1050.
Nice.
It's an imperial stout, 10.5 ABV. So it's a potent one.
It's a potent one. Nice. I myself, I have a little rye Wednesday, kind of like Tyler. Ooh. So the second one I'm gonna be drinking is a Dragon's Milk Reserve aged in rye things.
That's good.
But the one I'm having right now that I haven't actually tasted yet is a Rye Day the 13th. Which is a rye wine style ale aged in Rittenhouse rye whiskey barrels. Probably a little problematic if you're in Kenosha, but I'm going to taste and tell you how it is.
Those sound like you're going to throw you back a little bit.
That's pretty damn good. It's not a stout, but it drinks like a stout. This Rye Day the 13th is 12.1.
It's hefty.
And The Dragon's milk is 11.8.
Yes, sir.
Oof.
So let's get to the race weekend. Well, first, is there any news we should discuss?
The
Maybe two contracts that we need to talk
Yeah, I
about.
was saying there was
Couple
some
things.
contracts. There was that guy Buyer or whatever that left the FIA, left
Yeah,
his
you know,
post.
he was
Yeah.
replaced by someone.
Yeah,
The-
what was it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
An advisor to Mercedes or
Well,
something?
let's take it
Yeah.
from the top. Let's slow it down for all the people that haven't read the news.
Okay.
One funny thing though, I read that article on the F1 website, and it was like 2 paragraphs long. So
Yeah, it wasn't very long. It just said that
Very
he was
much.
leaving his post and who was replacing him.
This dude's
Yeah, but
out.
then every other news outlet was like, this guy is leaving and he's being replaced by someone who was a special advisor to Toto Wolff.
Total Wolf being the boss of Mercedes, of
So-
course.
Which,
So
like,
what was he? He was the like the general whatever of sport for the FIA.
Something
What
along those
does
lines. He
that
was
mean?
the FIA Secretary General.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So basically, if the collapse happens, he leads all the FIA secretaries in a bit of a vanguard.
Yes.
Cool, man.
And so I was thinking about that. I was like, God, like last season, I would have been like, nah, red flag. No. But this season, like, well, Mercedes sucks. It's not
So who gives a
You guys
shit?
can still do it.
They're not going to start. Well, so it's funny because this was announced, and then there was like an opinion article from someone saying someone high up in Mercedes was like, Mercedes is about to no, I think it might have even been Yost Verstappen said that Mercedes is they're flipping over. They're gonna come back and dominate the last 6 months or whatever of the fucking year. So
Yeah, okay. Well, they're what? And Lewis Hamilton will be how many points behind?
I can see them slowly maybe making their way up the grid a little bit, but I don't see like a drastic boom, they're back on top for the rest of the season. I don't see that happening at all.
yeah, Lewis Hamilton's points in the standings is like 9 points higher than his car number.
And everyone else at the top 3 people are into the triple digits now.
I know.
So, I mean, but I don't know, long season, but I don't see it happening.
Right. So not to sound too on the nose, but Sergio Perez spilled the beans about the re-signing of his
At
I
the
remember
race.
hearing that. I'm like, what did he say?
I didn't hear that. My
You
shit was
didn't hear
lagging-
it?
My shit was lagging so hard I didn't hear it at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
and
thought
then
I
Chris-
picked up something, but then I heard it like for sure after the fact when I had time to listen to things and
The best was Christian's reaction, where he's just like,
what are you doing? Shush.
there are cameras everywhere.
But only if only he would have held out one more race.
Yeah,
Right.
would've gotten
He
a
could have
huge
got a
thing.
little bit more.
A little bit more of a raise.
I wonder what he got.
I
I
don't
know it was a
fucking
two year
more money than I'll
extension,
ever
so-
see.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably more money than he was making over at
Tracing Point.
Sahara Force India and Force India and then Racing Point. You know who's probably not super thrilled about that?
Yeah. Mr.
Pierre
Gasly.
Let's have a
Which-
little sip for Gasly, poor bastard.
Oh, speaking of which,
But that brings us to Rumor Corner.
Yeah, let's talk about Rumor Corner.
Yeah,
So
no,
why don't
so
you go ahead,
I'm gonna
get
have
your
to
Crocs
cool-
on, and come sit down in the corner part of the couch.
So it's rumored.
It's rumored,
It's not even really rumored.
allegedly.
There's a lot of speculation.
allegedly.
allegedly.
It starts with Daniel Ricciardo not doing so hot over McLaren because not
But-
doing so hot over McLaren.
But that
He is
got
having an awful season.
no. Okay.
That's why it's allegedly Rumor Corner. Doesn't mean that any of this is actually going to happen.
Well, the first half of your allegedly Rumor Corner thing has already been disproven because of an announcement that was made today.
What was
Did
the
you not?
announcement?
You didn't see the announcement?
I guess I didn't see the announcement either.
Ricardo
Yeah.
got signed until 2026 with McLaren.
No
Oh, he did
shit?
for real?
No, that didn't
Yeah, he
fucking-
re-signed.
Horse
I
shit.
didn't see that.
No, I didn't see it either.
Unless it was just a joke, but I'm pretty
That,
sure
that
I saw
had to
the-
have been a joke
I think
because
that's
I
a
saw no
joke.
news stories on that. I recollecting a meme or something, but it was an obvious meme. It wasn't like a fake news one. So
Nope. Yeah.
yeah, I would say
Got
with
nothing
the
on that.
season he's
So,
having,
anyway,
for them
fake
to
news
sign
one.
him on till 2026 is just kind of silly.
Yeah.
As
no-
much as
no
I love
fucking
Danny
way.
Rick,
So,
he is just not performing, and McLaren would have the upper hand in any kind of deal they go with.
he's
So.
not. And Lando Norris is killing it. So
Well, he's definitely going to be there next year.
back to where I was. So there's clauses in the contract that get either of those people, whether Daniel wants to leave or McLaren wants to get rid of him. Whether they do that, we'll see. If he keeps having the bad season, I can see him not re-signing him. So that would say that his contract would be up at the end of 2023, right? Let's just say that McLaren wants to keep him around, finishes out next season in F1, because there's a pretty good looking driver who's out of contract at the end of 2023 as well. And that would be Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly could go the way of Carlos Sainz, where he ends up leaving, which at the time was Toro Rosso, but it would be AlphaTauri now.
Yeah, the Red Bull family.
Team and ends up in a much better place.
I think that Pierre Gasly's contract ends this year.
No, I think it's 2023.
Because I'm looking at the F1 official Instagram now, and they have their little driver lineup thing, and AlphaTauri's got 2 blacked out drivers.
That's true.
Man, I just turned on my Wi-Fi and you guys started chopping up. I was going to look up when his contract ended, but no, I'm not going to.
So that's the thing. And now the other rumor is, well, what's Danny Rick going to do? He's such a great personality. He's such a great racing driver, and he's so young. What would he do? The speculation is that Danny Ricciardo might maybe jump into NASCAR.
I saw that, but it was a meme.
What about like
Yeah, but
IndyCar though?
He could. A lot of F1 drivers could.
Yeah.
I mean, he could shine there too.
Speaking
And
of
he
that,
would
Mark,
be racing.
We'll get to that in a
which
second.
He's an honorary American, so
he loves American. He loves.
Yeah.
I love American.
I think he loves it more than I do.
He said that he gets tears in his eye. Yeah, he gets
love
tears in his
America.
eyes every time he hears the national anthem. And you know, the American racing series has traditionally done well with former F1 drivers.
Yeah.
NASCAR had did the Andretti's do NASCAR? Can't remember.
Raikkonen, Kimi Raikkonen's now doing something with NASCAR.
I think he's
doing
doing one
one-off
race. One
race.
race.
Oh, he's
Watkins
doing
Glen.
one-off race. Okay, I didn't know if he
Yeah.
was. Well, I didn't know he was even racing. I thought he was just involved in it somehow.
No, he's
No,
doing one race.
He's going to do a one-off race, which I really
At
wanna
Watkins
watch.
Glen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. That's pretty cool.
But Juan Pablo Montoya was a former Ferrari driver, and he drove NASCAR for a little while. Also did really well in IndyCar. A lot of the former F1 guys do really good in IndyCar. Well, not
I
really.
wonder
good.
why.
They're fairly
For the
similar,
home
aren't
IndyCar.
they? And it's
They're like pretty fucking similar.
and it's an inferior sport, so they probably go over there and do pretty well.
Harsh.
That probably pissing people off, especially right
Those
after the
cars are actually
500.
faster in a straight line than the
yeah.
F1
Well,
cars.
Romain
I think
knows.
I was watching something and there was a guy who was going around track and I think he averaged out at like 234 for a lap or something.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts.
Jesus. So, yes, F1 drivers tend to do really well in IndyCar. That included is Marcus Ericsson, who used to drive for Sauber before Sauber became Alfa Romeo.
He drove
Isn't that
at
the dude?
Sauber with Leclerc.
So
Yeah.
isn't that the dude that just won the Indy 500?
It
Yes,
is.
he is.
Yeah, because on the same weekend that Leclerc lost yet again at his home circuit, Ericsson, who got
finished this
dumped.
time.
He did.
Yeah.
That's a step in the right direction. God damn it! Look at the positives.
Yeah, he
I
was
guess.
not looking at the positives at the end of the race.
Yeah, no.
We'll get to that when we make jokes about it later. So I think Dave had a was there anything you wanted to add on to the conspiracy corner?
Not the conspiracy. I just wanted to put it out there. That's what I think might end up happening.
Right.
But we'll see. It's a long season.
Sure.
You know, Danny can pull himself around. I did want to add to that real quick, switching gears before we jump into what Dave said. You know who's really really fucking tired of listening to Jos Verstappen. Everyone.
Yeah.
Because he had put out a column on Max's page about how he was upset that they let Sergio Perez win the Monaco Grand Prix, and
They let him
it
win.
was,
Yeah.
Yeah, they
yeah.
let him win.
They had seen what Gasly was doing on his tires, and that was foreshadowing for the race. Sorry, and they should have like brought Max in first, and they didn't, and blah blah blah. It's
And they
like,
made
Jesus
Max
Christ.
qualify fourth. So
Um,
fuck off, Yost, you crazy psycho.
Right.
yeah, Sergio Perez intentionally crashed. Like, oh Jesus.
He walked
All right.
around punching boats after that, like punching the holes of them,
Yeah,
swimming under boats and just punching them as he's swimming.
that angry.
Yeah. Just why he wasn't swimming, he was walking on the floor of the ocean.
Yeah,
Just punching
Just
up in boats.
out of sheer anger.
I know. We knew where he was because of the bubbles. The bubbles kept coming and coming. And
The
coming
bubbles.
and coming. He took no scuba gear with him.
Yeah.
So angry, he was like boiling the water around him, and he was able to get the oxygen from
He's
that.
just like the whole way, and that's the whole reason that like water's not getting in his lungs. It's just
Right.
one long fucking exhale. While
Or
he's
it could be that he's Dutch in his web feet and gills. I don't know. But
Anyway, sorry to cut you
Dave,
off.
you had
Dave,
a
you had
news
something?
point you want to pick
Oh,
up.
I mean, I don't know if it falls into conspiracy corner, but it probably falls into hearsay corner. There was a thing I saw.
Well,
and I
we'll
don't-
go into the speculation den for this one.
Yeah, you
I-
take
I-
your tinfoil cap off, walking in.
But keep it near. Keep it nearby.
I was scrolling through something, and I want to say it was on a news feed on Facebook. No, I think it was an Instagrammer, and it said something about Giovinazzi being fitted for a Haas seat.
Ooh.
So I don't know if
You're gonna get rid of.
well, I mean, the only reason I think they might would be he's kind of costing them a lot of money with these shunts, and they don't have a whole lot of money to be playing with. So I mean, it wouldn't be
Nope, especially with the cost caps.
yeah. So it's like they like I said, it's hearsay thing. I saw it and I didn't really dig, so I don't know how true it is.
Well, it's not. You might not be that far off because they are part of the Ferrari tree. They don't have Mick guaranteed next year for a seat, but they do have Magnussen guaranteed next year for a seat. So there could be some truth to that. But then where does Mick go? Where
I don't know.
does he go?
Where does
Alfa Romeo's got an open seat next year.
Carlos Sainz. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be so fucked up. But Zhao Guan Yu is not re-upped for next year, so he could
Yeah,
be
so
lateral
he got that-
moving to Alpha.
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, he
He's
got
gonna
that
get the
point,
golden
and then he kind of hasn't really produced anything since.
No,
He's gonna get.
he better get a W if he ever wants to set foot in China again. You know?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, he's almost undoubtedly state sponsored, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of money.
F1's social credit score went up by like 9 billion when they signed him on.
Also, it's rumored COVID.
So they can buy cereal and water and toilet paper and stuff if they went over there.
Depending upon how COVID's looking, it could end up being back in China next year too.
China.
Oh, racing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, racing, not COVID. Well, COVID could still be there, but like no, the race at the Chinese Grand Prix, which is a cool track.
When was the
Right,
last
like-
time they raced in China?
The year before
2019.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 2020, they're like,
2020 fucked it up
No.
for a lot of places.
What do
No.
they race in Beijing or
Yeah, I think no, it's Shanghai.
Shanghai?
Might be. Oh, it's a cool track though. They're gonna.
It is a really cool track. It's got a really long straightaway.
really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, speaking of races, let's get to the Monaco weekend.
Yay!
Now, if you're new to Formula One, this is so last the Miami GP, we told you got to watch all the practices. This is a new track. Don't necessarily need to do that on Monaco. If you want to get into the sport and want to help learn a lot of the stuff, watching the practices are great. If you listen to Martin Brundle and Crofty, they got a lot of facts to give out. Crofty.
Although
and,
they don't do practice 1s and 2. You got to get them on free practice 3 in qualifying. They don't do Friday.
Well, whatever. So they you can get a lot of facts from the practices. Thank you for that, Dave. Didn't mean to shut you out like that. But
real quick, I will say one of the things I like about them doing that, especially with Matt and is it not Brundle? Crofty, because he used to drive.
Brundle used to drive. I don't think Crofty was ever a driver.
Yeah, Crofty
It
didn't
was
drive.
Brundle. So anyway, like when someone's doing a flying lap and like whatever track it is, like Martin Brundle has driven there before, and so he gives like the play-by-play of like, oh yeah, you want to hit it hard here and let off here, and then get wide on the apex here.
Right? Yeah, it is cool. So getting back into the swing of my thought before I was so rudely interrupted.
It was a good time.
I had a
was
good
that
flow.
was that Tyler or me? It might have been me.
But both of you, I had a good flow going, and I tripped up a little bit, and then I got completely derailed.
Well,
So
all right.
it's probably Tyler's Celine Dion shirt keeps throwing
yeah,
me
it's
off.
keep fucking strat. Yeah.
I want one.
The bottom rocker says my heart will go on.
I know. I want one so bad.
Okay.
Anywho.
So
Anywho,
if you're new to Formula One, I would recommend watching the practices. They can get a little dreary sometimes, and it's a lot of time to dedicate to a sport. Whereas, like if you watch baseball or football, it's just one day. But this is a whole weekend. This is how we race.
Baseball's every day.
yeah, baseball's like they do. Oh, we're playing 3 nights here and then 4 nights there. So it's like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Right. But is there a practice and then a qualifying and then the game?
No, it's just
No, but
games
each-
every day.
Okay, so it's
each
just
game
games
is
every
like
day.
each game's
Exactly.
like 6 hours long.
3, generally
Okay,
2
so
and a half to 3.
Let me start over. I apologize
Go
for
ahead.
being wrong.
Yeah, well, it's about
Jesus
time you
fucking Christ. I can't wait to
acknowledge
see
that.
what I get picked up out next.
Yeah, well, then
So
start talking and we'll see.
watch the practices if you want to start to learn more about the sport and stuff. There's a lot of good info in there.
Yeah,
Is
there
that
is.
okay? Am I good?
Yeah, that
Okay,
really is.
So
then,
far,
but
all right.
when you're in Monaco, though, you really, really, really want to watch the qualifying.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is not a good example,
Yeah.
but this weekend isn't. But the person that gets qualifies first place usually wins,
Yeah,
barring
it's probably
shitty
like
pitch strategy or a fucked up lug nut or some
Yeah.
other act of God.
probably what like 80%
rain.
of pole winners win Monaco. I would
Yeah.
assume something like that. High
It's-
number.
It's very high because the track is very narrow. The cars are very wide, and there's like 1 or 2 passing lanes, and there's only one DRS down the main, not so straight. So
Unless you're Pierre Gasly on intermediates when everybody else is on
sure.
wets.
Yeah, I saw
passing
that.
Ricardo in a spot no one has ever
It's like,
passed anyone
what?
before.
Yeah.
Look at him go.
I've
So-
seen a
Anyhow.
couple historically good videos of people trying to pass like not so great areas, like Hamilton trying to pass. I think it was Alonso, like at the what's the hairpin there? Was it Razkaz? I think is what they
Something
call
like
it.
that. It's like the last.
got
It's
a-
the one that
It's got a new
Leclerc
name
back to
now.
Ferrari into the side of.
Yeah,
old
so he
old
tries,
school. All right, go ahead.
Sorry to be cutting you off, but he tries to go around Fernando Alonso on the inside, and then it's a classic Hamilton going around. He hit me, man. You left me no room. Like,
Right.
fuck you.
He said the same shit about Ocon, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
So yeah, you really want to watch the qualifying more. I mean, the teams every race weekend go balls to the wall for qualifying. You always want to get a good position,
Yeah.
but there's almost a bit more intensity. That the air's thicker with anticipation on who is going to get that coveted pole position.
Yeah, there definitely is. Like when we were watching with this qualifying, especially since when I told Annie that like this matters a lot for this race, we
Mhm.
were both like the whole time. Yeah, it just makes it that much more intense. It's nice.
Right. And
It's-
qualifying was a bit intense because
Yeah.
it was even more so important to get this one. I mean, I keep saying that more important, but the planets were aligning kind of
Yeah, they were.
in that there was a risk of rain on the race day. So if it wasn't already paramount for you to get first place at Monaco, it is even more so because if you're not going to pass in Monaco in a dry, you're definitely not going to pass in the wet. And we saw that because only 1 or 2 people passed people in the wet
Yeah.
for track position. They were passing back markers, but they were slowing down to the side. But Gasly's pass, and I think Valtteri Bottas got around someone, or maybe it was Vettel. That was it. No other passing.
Yeah.
Unless they were in the pit, no other passing happened.
Yeah, there was no passes coming unless it was like, coming out of the pits.
Yeah.
The thing that makes like Monaco exciting on the actual race day too is the occasional passing, like we were talking about, but it is also strategy too, and if the weather comes in, like we saw, there was a lot of rain there. And then if you get something happens in the pits, like you would see in years past, like with Valtteri Bottas, like when he's having an okay race and then they sheared the nut off of his wheel, or when Daniel Ricciardo came in, I think it was in 2016, and he tried to get because it rained that weekend too. I think it was going from intermediates to slicks, and they weren't. He came into the pit stop, and Red Bull was not ready for him. No one was standing out there.
So it can be a wild one. Like, well, and also this one was strange just because like practices, qualifying, all dry, hot temperatures. It was a pretty hot track, except for I guess qualifying had the lower temperatures because it was in the evening or whatever. But then all of a sudden race day, it's like boom, downpour. Like
and they will set up the cars.
Help.
No, and they will set the cars up a little different. We saw that back in Imola where it was the same. It was the opposite. They had practices and qualifying were all really wet, so the cars were tuned to be in the wet. And I don't remember exactly what they do. They mess with the steering, so there's like a little bit less oversteering or something to the matter. I could be getting that completely backwards, but the cars are fundamentally set up different before Parfume hits, and they can only change a few things.
Yeah,
this was the opposite. So they knew the rain was coming, so they had to do all the setup for the car, but realized that they probably should kind of go with a hybrid setup where it's a little shittier in the dry, but it's better for the wet based on past data. But you're kind of shooting, because you don't want a car that is set up strictly for dry racing and slap wet tires on it and then take it around the track on a wet track, because that car will not do well.
Ooh. Yeah, it's weird the little tweaks they do to perform properly in certain situations. And if you don't do that, or if you have it set for that and the situation changes, then all of a sudden you're just like, man, now
you're boned.
Now we're paddling up the creek.
And then you think you have stuff figured out from like, because you're always like learning something from the race that you're at, like you're getting all this data, like, okay, how do we make the car better for the next one? And it was like with Mercedes, everything they had learned at the previous race, they had gotten the porpoising issue figured out. And then they went to Monaco with like, I think it was like less downforce that they were using. And that car was bouncing. That was not porpoising.
I mean, you could see like when they had that mass cam going for those short stints where you were watching Mercedes, they were bouncing quite a bit. Like, I almost felt bad for Russell, because it's like, last race it's like they had things figured out, and the car was cooperating better. And then this time, both of them, like, they were both fighting the car,
right?
But they were still putting up good times. Like I think Lewis and Russell both put up fastest laps at one point.
Yeah, they were boogieing pretty good. And the crazy thing about that is, so to kind of put it in perspective, just walk around your house, right? Walk to a corner of your house. Doesn't matter if it's in a door, out a door, whatever, and try and get your one shoulder as close to the apex of that turn as you possibly can, right? Yeah. So, and just walking, just get as close, go as slow as you can. And then at that exact same speed, do it, but make your head go like this. Try and find the apex, because it's fucking difficult.
Do you know how many of those slow-mo shots they had during that race were like, they had Mick was one that was like, I mean, his tires were nanometers or whatever from the
Perez also.
And Perez, Leclerc had one that was super close. Like, Jesus, man, these guys are just this, like a CH from disaster.
Monaco, just to kind of finish my spiel there, Monaco, more than any other, even some of the other street races, like in what's that one? I can't think of it off the top of my head. It was the one where both the Red Bulls took each other out that one year.
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah, that's where we're at next week.
It's the,
Or
it's
not
the
next week,
race.
but yeah, it's
So
the next race.
that has got their sharp street corners.
Yeah.
And that's a really dangerous track. You can really get caught out, especially around the castle. This is more difficult. These streets are much smaller. Almost all the apexes are sharp corners that will, just like you said, just a little bit wider of a C hair, or say a coarse C hair versus a regular C hair. Your suspension's fucked and you don't race, which is what Leclerc found out last year.
Yeah.
It was Leclerc's drive shaft. I think it was. It wasn't his suspension.
Well, yeah, but it was a wheel problem.
No, but this track really demonstrates the skill and the concentration that all these drivers really need to have to do this, because like Dave, I think, tagged us in a video on Facebook, and it was like an F1 car, but it was superimposed going around like Monaco, what it is when it is not a racetrack.
I posted, or maybe you did post that, but I did see it was on a video game. Yeah, it's without the racetrack.
Without the racetrack, yeah.
It's insane. It had like a couple parts in the track. It's not actually like a street either. You're driving.
It's like a sidewalk or something. Yeah,
it's a sidewalk. And then like you come out of the tunnel and like it's dark in the tunnel and your eyes adjust to that, and all of a sudden it's super bright, like going right into like a braking zone,
a downhill braking zone. Two
that's a rough
90-degree turns.
Not to cut you off too, but did you see the other meme? Or it was a video I sent you of like the car. It was a mass cam going through the tunnel, and it was a girl looking at like on a split thing.
Yeah,
and the girl on top video, she was like, got dark, and she was like, "Oh, I can see," and then all of a sudden, like the flash went off as she exited the tunnel. It was like, just put her back. Like,
saw that one. I thought you were going to talk about someone famously messing up that corner. Leclerc and running into someone and ripping their wheel off.
Oh God!
When was this?
This was when he was with Sauber.
Oh, okay.
Was that when his fucking brakes?
I don't remember when Sauber was a thing.
Yeah. So what happened was he was cooking it, and he went down and he was doing downhill braking. He already was having less braking because he was braking on the those rumble strips, the colpines, I don't remember what they call them, but the red and white bastards that you see on the corners of all the racetracks. So that also didn't help the braking, and then his brake failed critically. It exploded, and
they got that brown dust around it and stuff.
You could see the brown dust go, and then that's it, that's done. Because I don't think that's actual dust. I think the brown mist is extremely hot and high pressure brake fluid that has found a way out.
Whatever it is, you do not want to breathe that in.
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want that. You want to get that in your lungs. You don't want to see it because it usually means a part of your car is going to fly off, which it did.
Yeah, and I think that was, to correct you, I think that was, you said Sauber. I think that was Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, Alfa Sauber. It wasn't it?
Oh, you said Sauber. Like I was like, I know I'm new, but I thought that was
I thought they were Alfa Sauber, or maybe they were Alfa Romeo when he got signed on. I don't know.
I think it was.
He was with Alfa Romeo. I know that.
They were Alfa Sauber.
See, yeah, that was before my time.
Well, they're Alfa Sauber now.
Whatever,
dude.
Whatever,
dude.
Whatever.
Sauber, and then Sauber folded, and they got picked up by Alfa Romeo.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, boom. Nailed it.
I don't even know why I said that. I should have just said Alfa Romeo. It was just my own hubris that was getting in the way. I just wanted to see.
Hey, a minute ago you said like point out the next time you're wrong. So I was just waiting for it to happen. And then it happened. And then I let you toe the line for a little bit.
Yeah, why would you say that to your brother? You know he's just gonna sit there and wait for something.
Yes.
I would have done the same thing.
I'm just trying to find attention any way I can find it. And setting up Tyler to make fun of me is the only way I get attention right now. So
see, that's like a younger child thing. That's something Tyler should be doing.
Oh, I am good at making fun of like poking at my older brother and finding the right time to strike. That's what you do as a younger sibling.
Yeah, you got to be more tactful.
Yeah.
Well, so it's funny because
like lay the roast on. The younger sible's like, okay, I gotta wait. I need
bide my time.
I'd almost say it's the opposite. Tyler's more quality over quantity, quantity over quality, and I'm more quality over quantity. I'll wait. Like a sniper in the bushes, and then
in the bush.
He'll shoot like 10 things at me, and then we'll be in the car one day, and he'll tell me I'll tell him a motorcycle's gonna flip one direction, and tell him he's fucking wrong, and because he just called me. Hold his hand out and make him go like this, and he'll go, shut up.
We're gonna need to edit that because you can't say you fucking.
Sorry, it's a hard R.
Yeah, that was a hard R.
So, yeah, at the end of qualifying, Ferrari locked out the front row. Dope. I think it was Red Bull locked out second
3
row.
and 4.
Yeah, and so then there was the great part in the broadcast, like getting into Q3, where they're showing, like, they're watching Ferrari go through the tunnel, and you're like, all right, cool. And then, or like, right as they went into the tunnel, you see a Red Bull slide across the screen.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we cut to that?
Can we see what's going on?
I remember.
But before that, there was a part where was it Yuki Tsunoda just course sea-haired it too much on the turn outside of the tunnel.
Oh,
and they threw up the red flag like immediately.
Yeah.
His car was still driving, and the marshal was like, shut it down, shut everything off.
And all he did, I mean, he rubbed his tire and his wheel hub pretty good. I mean, he tore it up pretty good, but he was drivable.
And it was like
that's like a yellow flag. Okay, green flag.
It's like an iron reinforced race barrier that took not even so much as a scuff. I like to think someone dropped it and picked it up, and like a gust of wind took it as he was putting it in his. I don't know. I imagine they had the flags and like sword holsters on their back.
Whoever,
but at any rate, they got red flagged, and then now we can get to the why is that Red Bull sideways?
Real quick, I want to back into before that, because he went to red flag, there, and that irritated me because they just said like, we got a red flag, and they keep showing everyone slowing down on the track, and they're not cutting to where like the red flag was. They weren't focused on Yuki Tsunoda's car or anything. And then there was another point qualifying. I think I had texted Dave about where like I had said like we should fucking like beat the shit out of the camera guy. And I don't. Look, I'm not supporting violence on this podcast, but like it was during qualifying, and I want to say it was one of the McLarens come out, and they're doing like their first flying lap, and you see the time ticker.
It was Norris.
Screen.
Yeah.
Norris comes out. He's doing his flying lap, and instead of showing that, they're watching one of the fucking Ferraris coming out of the pit, like, which is not exciting at all. What is the goddamn fuck are we doing over here?
That's not the cameraman. That's the F1 TV producer and director that picks the cameras.
Producer, like, I just wanted to just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
that's why I'm like, during the broadcast, like
Dave's getting a little too passionate.
I guess so. During the broadcast, like you'll hear Crofty and Brundle, they'll be talking about like, I'd love to see a replay of what just happened there, and you'll never get it. It's like, are they listening to the broadcast? I mean, are they just like randomly?
They have their own unholy masters they must fall to.
See, that's
because you'll see a wreck happen. And then they're like, oh, we're going to go, let's replay the start of the race. Like, no, let's analyze the wreck that just fucking happened.
It's almost like they have
lap 30.
Yeah, well, it's almost like they have just one streaming thing of just they film everything, and then everybody that's broadcasting just has to play off of it and hope they can.
In their defense,
like actual feed.
I will say that, and Dave, this might help put it in perspective, especially because you in some way have experience with this, but when you edit stuff, is when a crash happens, they need to then go back through the footage, edit a small segment to throw into the broadcast. So they don't just, when you're doing replay stuff, you can't just click to another camera, because if you just click to the camera, you're going to go to the live feed of that camera.
Oh no!
So someone has to sit in there and find the footage, clip, paste, put into a bracket, and then throw it into the feed, and then they can click over to it. So there's a bit more to it than just show me the camera.
I'm also saying at the same time, when I'm watching baseball or hockey, they always seem to have the broadcast and the picture always on the same page, like they know what they're fucking doing.
Sure.
Yeah, it was.
But baseball happens. Baseball happens every day, and they have more practice doing it.
Baseball
Formula One
happens,
has
it's like
so much money. Come on.
Yeah,
but the cars move around. The cars move around. There might not be.
I know. I'm sure there's way more into it than I'm thinking about. But it's like, they got the money. They can put a little more effort into making sure the broadcast and the picture all kind of are cohesive. Instead, it always
show
feels
us the
like
cool shit.
it always feels like the broadcasters are just sitting in a booth looking at TV screens instead of just, like watching a race
Rubbing
or
one out.
commentating. You know what I'm saying? It's like it seems like they're watching the same race I am and like trying to figure shit out.
I will back it up and say, in defense of like the Yuki Tsunoda red flag, like that would be hard. With some red flags, it's pretty blatant. Like like this car's in two pieces, or like this wreck happened. But they're like looking around, be like, "What?
I don't. Yeah, there's no car stopped on the track.
Like, there's no upside down car on fire right now."
Yeah, I feel like that's happened quite a bit though this season. With was it Magnussen at one of the last?
It was
Italy
Imola.
race.
Imola had the really.
He went off, and he was able to save, and they still red flagged it. It was and that's yellow flag at best. Come on.
The other thing is like the red flags are kind of like the fires of Gondor, where you don't know which one's starting. Like they don't, like this guy doesn't hit a butt, he just flies the flag, and then they see it and they go, "Hark, flag," and they raise their flag and it gets back to the central, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
The light and the torches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird, but
something else that was kind of weird that I wanted to bring up before we went to the thing. It's real short. So you might have seen the cars randomly getting stopped on the weigh station. That has actually been happening all throughout the seasons, but they don't usually show it because that shit's boring. But they're doing weird shit now with that one where they're trying to be more transparent for whatever reason. So they're showing it. So basically, they're just trying to make sure everything's within regulation. So they'll have a random weigh in. It's just like a trucker stuff.
And then that's only in practices and qualifying, right?
No, not qualifying.
Not qualifying, just practices.
Because you're not going to make someone lose out on potential lap time in qualifying.
No, I think they do it in qualifying. They just do it at the end of the session.
Sure, they'll do it at the end of the session, but they won't randomly pull you in when you're coming into the pits like they will in practice.
Yeah.
No, not till the end.
I would say, like this was like one of the first times I think they've actually kind of aired it and made it. It was kind of prominent. They showed it a couple 100%. Times, especially when like Leclerc like missed his and had to be pushed back,
which is what I was going to talk about. So,
Jesus, sorry.
That's okay. So Leclerc did miss it as he was coming in. Now the pit lane entry for Monaco is like the track, very tricky.
It's fucking goofy. Yeah.
It's blind corner pretty much. I mean, a lot of them are blind corners, but there's a difference between having a blind corner on a golf cart width path and having it on a turn in for a fucking walkway. So he went in there, he missed the guy waving his hands and shit. Blew right by it, but very cleverly. And the race, the pit director for Ferrari was also very clever with this, had him stop everything. And the crew went out there and pushed him back. And that was allowed because
he didn't go ahead.
He didn't make so he didn't make it back to the pit. Now, had he made it back to his pit box, they could have done that silly thing where they're like, you are in your pit box and something could have happened.
Yeah, you could have done something.
This is beyond a reasonable doubt. Nothing got touched in the car. The crew on full view of the stewards was pushing, and the FIA people was pushing the car back to the weigh station for him to get weighed. Now you could also say, well, why did Ferrari have people in the pits? It's practice. Half of the cars are in the pits already. The other half are doing bullshit, fuck around laps. It's not a racing desperation to get into the pits.
Yeah.
And you can radio people more radio messages when you go through practice than you can in the race, like saying, hey, don't come in the pits this go around because there's dudes in the pits. And then the car just goes by. So no penalty happened there. Leclerc was able to get weighed and everything was totally peachy. So in case you got confused by that, which I'll correct myself, was not in qualifying. It was in free practice 3.
There was also an incident with Schumacher when he had an issue and he pulled into the pit, but then I guess lost all power and couldn't do anything. But for some reason, steered just enough left to where he just totally blocked the pit entrance.
100%. And then was it Ocon or was it Alonso?
No, he blocked Alonso because Michael Schumacher did the same thing.
All right, well, let's get to the race before we waste too much more time.
Let's do it. It was a
very
interesting race. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So when the race finally started,
I'll say, first off, it was a nice delay because of
huge delay,
the downpour.
It was about, I don't know. I want to say it was about an hour delay because
it had to have been.
I wanted to get up and watch it live, but I get pretty bad lag on F1 TV, so I was going to wait until about 8:30 my time to watch the race, which I think it would have been over. And Dave texted me, he's like, "Have you started watching yet? It's under a delay." And I was like, "No." So I got out of bed and do what I usually do on my Monaco weekend, which is make some mimosas and start watching the race.
Oh, sorry.
So I managed to get F1 TV like hooked up to my TV and everything started right as the safety car was out and they were doing all of their laps and stuff. And it was like, right. I think I timed it just perfectly. They did like 2 more laps before they started racing.
Right. Yeah. So the starting was something that I wanted to talk about, especially because it was extra goofy this time. And it was due to a few things. First off, the main race director for the FIA was a new guy. He has had a lot of experience directing Le Mans and stuff like that, but not F1. So he's got the experience directing races and shit. What? I can't hear you. You're all quiet.
Yeah, you're real quiet.
I forgot to hit on mute when I was doing things. So there's 2 new race directors, right?
Yes. And but so he's the main dude, the one I'm talking about. The other guy was in there. He was not the main race director, but he had a lot more experience working with F1. I think was formerly a race director, but this dude was the Michael Massey for this race. Okay. Very inexperienced with F1. And a lot of people, especially including me, because I didn't read anything about the race. I watched it hours after it was completed. Thought that he was, he was doing some fuck ups because they waited forever to start the race. They started in what races before. I get
really the late. Frantic. Sorry, go ahead. I don't know.
So it was really frantic and all that stuff. Deciding whether or not they were starting the safety car. Because one rule in Formula One is that if you start with the safety car because it's wet, you have to have the full wet tires. And none of the cars on the grid were set up with full wets. And that was a rule that changed like even just 5 or 6 years ago, because some guy brought up the fact that if it's dangerous enough out there for you to need a safety car to start the race, it is then dangerous enough for you to have the full super wet tires.
Yeah.
So that's why people were scrambling to put tires on. You saw mechanics were running with tires down.
Dude, what's his name? The principal the CEO of Williams. Yeah, he was out there pushing tires and helping.
He was helping people. Yeah. Jeez. You don't see Total Wolff or Christian Horner doing that shit.
It's also a weird track for that kind of shit too.
It is.
You gotta push your shit from it's all your stuff is in a weird place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the other part that we found out later was there was a massive power failure in the race director's office and the production office.
Yeah.
So they were having a hell of a time getting that shit together because
whole swaths of Monaco were having power issues.
Yeah, power issues. It's a bit of a microclimate there with all the big mountains and the steepness, but they can't run the race if the race directors can't monitor shit. And then because you could say like, what if they're running the race and the race directors have no power to their booth and fucking, someone's like, bam, bam, and then run someone in the wall and they're like, oh, hey, fucking Hamilton ran Max Verstappen to the wall and the FIA is like, we didn't see it because we didn't have any power, that kind of shit can be really nasty. Yeah. So that's one of the main reason why we had such a massive delay.
Yeah. And it was the whole thing. Like when we were watching, I only contributed it to being like, they don't want to start under such heavy downpour. I get that. And, so let's wait for it to slow up. They think, the radar's coming in, says it's going to slow up. Let's wait for then. And that's what I thought was going on. So
right.
I didn't realize until like, I guess it was midway when they said that, parts of Monaco were having power issues due to the storms and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. And the other weird thing that happened was, so you have a set number of laps when you race a F1 race, but there's also a time limit. Now,
this is the first time I ever seen
the time limit.
Yeah.
Well, we saw it in Spa, kind of.
Well, I still don't even count that as an actual race.
A lot of people, yeah. But so the idea behind that is I think it was after Canada, like 2015, 2018, something like that. The race is like 5.5 hours long because they didn't have a time limit set up on the races yet. And it was rainy, it was wet, and they got like 16 red flags and shit like that. So
Is it me? I think a 2 hour time limit's a little short. I mean, 3 hours seems more feasible and better.
well, you say
Yes,
that, but
maybe.
you've also watched a season and a half now, and you've only seen one time limit go. And Thailand
I
have been
know,
watching
but
Formula One for years. We've seen what, maybe five?
I
Maybe?
like
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
to see a race finish with the appropriate number of laps, and I'll sit there and watch some laps with safety cars due to rain or whatever. I don't give a fuck. I'd like to see a race finish itself. You know what I mean?
Sure. 100%. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you, but people that don't agree with you are the corporate sponsors that want
Yeah.
that TV time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So the weird thing that happened was, first off, the safety car went around before the race officially started, and they did a few formation laps, right? So the cars are weighed down with fuel that they think is going to get you to the end of the race and have exactly 1 liter. And if that sounds bonkers, that is what happens all the time. The car,
I don't know how they fucking do it.
Unless you're Sebastian Vettel in Sochi, you finish with 1 liter of fuel in your car. Exactly. It's all done by weight. It's all done by math.
I still think he got screwed due to his protest he had prior to the race.
Right.
It is engineering and mathematics to the end, where they're like, we have calculated our fuel like pump running at this level.
I mean, that's fucking nuts that they can calculate that out with.
Oh yeah,
with and then also trying to figure in tire strategy, fuel strategy, fucking ERS strategy.
Well, you can change engine modes and how rich you're running the fuel, which will change your power output.
And so the other thing, sorry, that like you don't see too, for those that are like new to the sport, like you have like the cars are beaming back like all kinds of telemetry back to and what they show on camera is like a couple people like the team boss and excuse me, the strategist and like a couple engineers sitting in the pit box with them. But what you don't see is like there's an entire team of engineers watching the race back at the headquarters, like getting all the telemetry from the cars, like the people that have designed
in real time.
Real time watching the race in the engine. So they're all beaming all that information back to be like, and they've done the calculations too with like the fuel to be like, okay, if you have this much fuel in and we run on these engine modes at this strategy, this is how we get to the end of the race the fastest.
Right.
Can you imagine being the IT person for
an
F1 team?
It's probably a pretty high attrition rate.
Holy
keep fucking up.
The way
I mean, just the amount of like sensors and data coming in that they have to manage and put into a thing that everyone can understand.
Yeah. And
insane.
then have like fail safes for all those sensors too. Like, okay, your one oxygen sensor failed. Okay, we've got 3 more on the car. We can run off of that information. Like,
right.
It's insane.
Well,
I'd like to think of it as like, and not to this scale, but like, with like there was like mission control in Houston with like the
100%.
rockets and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So like the shuttle would be launched out of Florida. So like they're racing somewhere else. But then like you look at that old school like 60s of like NASA during like the Gemini projects and stuff, where like you have like all these banks of engineers sitting around, and that's what they're doing. They're just crunching numbers the whole race.
That is insane.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is because of all that, and because they're so pinpoint accuracy with that, they know how much fuel they want to put in the car. And when you have a couple of formation laps that don't count toward the race total, that totally fucks everything over.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes what they'll do is if it's wet and they say they do 5 formation laps before they start the race, instead of 77 laps, they would have had 72 laps as the official race distance. So it saves the fuel kind of, and it keeps you from having to really throttle the car back too much.
So without being a total curmudgeon again, let's what are we talking about? Monaco race.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm just a lot of stuff happened at the beginning of this race that's new, and if anyone's new to it, they're probably gonna have a few questions. I'm getting through it, so I'll wrap it up, Dave.
And then, like I said, I don't want to be.
I
a
know
curmudgeon.
you don't want to. I know you don't
Dave's
want to
being
be
a
like
frumpy frumperton
he doesn't
right
want to be
there.
editing forever.
Frumpy
That's fine. I get
frumperton.
it. I wouldn't either. So
Yeah,
I'll sum it up
No,
pretty quick.
no,
But
it's not personal.
I know
Just-
it's not personal.
I'm actually
100%.
trying to be thoughtful for you because you're in the earlier time zone. It's late for you.
I'm all right. I'll be all right.
Yeah, tomorrow's
I had
big Saturday. I don't fucking care how late.
it's my Sunday, and I had 2 cups of coffee before I started drinking, so I'm here.
All right,
So
well, fuck it. Let's do it.
right.
Let's
So
roll.
so because of that, they did not. So one of the weird things, they didn't take any laps away from the race total, which was a bit of a no. They didn't quite do 5 formation laps, but they did 2 or 3, which kind of spreads the water around, makes it a little safer for the cars. But it was a torrential
Yeah.
downpour, especially when they got in the pits. So
Yeah, I'm
they get into the
surprised they
pits.
didn't bring them out early, like at least the safety car out early to start spreading that water around.
And I think that's where it comes with 2 things were the major factor: that 1, the inexperience from the racing director, and 2, the power outage. It fucked over a lot of people.
Let's say, I mean, he's probably thinking nothing but safety at this point.
Yeah, he's thinking this is my first race. I'm not fucking it up with someone
Yeah.
crashing.
Yeah.
Especially if it
I
was
mean,
easily
that's a
preventable.
lot of weight on your shoulders. So
Everyone's got to start somewhere, and if this dude is being annoying because he's being too safe
Well,
on his first race, I'm
you
not
know
mad
what?
about it.
it was what, maybe a 45-minute, what did we say, 45-minute to an hour delay, whatever.
Yeah, I think all said in total, it was about an hour. From when I kicked on the TV, I think it was about an hour behind.
I can deal with that. Thank you for looking out
Right.
for the driver's safety. Did you ever see the other meme that I sent you?
I think so.
FIA was like, we're going to delay the start because of rain, and then underneath it was like Dolph Lundgren, if they die, they die.
Yeah.
I did.
It was like it
fucking-
was just fans.
That was Martin Brundle, because he was like, these are supposed to be the best racing drivers in the world, and you're treating them like they're kids in carts, which I also kind of get,
You know,
But-
at the same time, but it's in the wet, dude. That shit is dangerous, and these
It's
cars
dangerous.
are fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the last 2 or 3 deaths that have happened around Formula One have been when it was wet out, but we won't get into that too much. So the other weird thing that happened is when you have a delay start, you don't normally start the racing clock when you're having a delayed start, but they started the racing clock about 20 minutes before they left.
Yeah, that was
So
weird.
instead of having a
Weird.
2-hour racing period, we had an hour and 40-minute racing period.
Yeah, that was why did they start the clock?
I think it's inexperience again. And now, if this had been a seasoned vet that had been with the sport for 20 years, he probably would have let the boys race in the wet a little bit earlier. He probably wouldn't have started the clock immediately. But again, this is this dude's first thing. You know, it's his first time umpiring for kid sports, and he fucked it up. So it's a big fuck up on a big scale, but he fucked it up, and he didn't
Yeah.
fuck it up. He just didn't do the best job.
Well, it
Yeah.
was a little off, a little goofy, and
Everyone walked away from the race, some
Yeah.
earlier than others, but whatever.
well, you know
Yeah.
what? And honestly, that's probably like the one thing he's
that's
proudest
all he
about
cares
is that all his drivers survived the race.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And it wasn't the last race of the season. It's not Martin.
yeah, it's right in the middle,
Yeah.
kind of.
But
anyway,
We're
so-
still in the first quarter of the season, aren't we?
Sure, first, third.
Third. Anyway,
Something like that. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so the race starts, and I, as a Ferrari fan, was on cloud fucking 9. I was like, this is amazing.
yes.
Charles Leclerc is super far ahead. And it really started to
Man.
remind me of the Ferrari of yesteryear. Like
Yeah.
back like 10 years ago when they were doing really good. And then wouldn't you know it, they did the exact same thing Ferrari's been doing for the last 20 years and fucking up their pit strategy.
Dude,
Ferrari
When-
always
I don't
makes
know.
some of the fastest cars in the fucking world, and they just go full derp for pit strategy. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why.
N-
Like, so normally they'll say, okay, look, we're going to do this, and they'll get feedback from the drivers. Science gave them great feedback. He gave them
Yeah.
race winning feedback.
yeah,
And what do they do?
straight
with
to
it?
the
They go,
slicks.
yeah, no.
Dude, you know, and Annie called it too. She fucking nailed it. Oh, god damn it. What were we just talking about?
Ferrari
Oh,
fucking up.
Ferrari fucking up their pit strategy. And science
Oh.
calling.
No, yeah, as soon as they called in fucking Leclerc, she was like, why? And then
Yeah, no shit.
he was like, all right. And then no, why? And
Yes. So
I was like, how the fuck did you call that?
So I think wasn't that the pit where they
Didn't
put
you
them
do
on
that?
slicks? That wasn't the pit where
they put them on slicks.
they put them on
wanted to
slicks.
double
So that was the
stack it.
second pit. Yeah, they were double stacking and they fucked it up because Ferrari loves to fuck up pit stuff. They can't. It's their kryptonite. They can build the fastest cars, have the best drivers in the world, but they can't fucking figure out their pits. So and we're getting really far ahead, and that's mostly because the race,
Oh yes,
as is usual in Monaco, is a boring.
Yeah, Monaco's
actually it wasn't too boring. I mean, there was some pretty fascinating times that happened.
Sure, there's good racecraft you were seeing.
We saw
Gasly pass Ricardo.
Zhou Guan Yu fucking make one of the saves
Tokyo
of the
Drift.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone else had a really big.
save.
Yes, it was Science had also.
Science had
big
a
drift,
really big one coming out of that last
tunnel.
that final turn.
Yeah.
No, it
was that final turn coming to that final straight. Yeah, and he got kind of sideways. It was like it was right when he was on Perez's heels, and it cost him probably a couple tenths of a second or whatever. But
so getting back to the race here, we saw a lot of fun things throughout the race. A couple super cool drifts, but the defending and was much to the frustration of Lewis Hamilton, which is always fun to see. As much as you feel bad for him, but he and Ocon, and this isn't the first time they've had a tangling where he just can't get around the Frenchman, who somehow makes his car go from 6 meters to 9 meters.
Yeah, he made a very wide car for a little while.
Yes, 100%. And so, speaking of the Mercedes drivers, I figured it out because there's been something different about George Russell ever since he went to Mercedes, and I couldn't put my fucking finger on it, but there was something that was different about him.
Steroids.
And what?
Steroids.
Well, first off,
a bit jacked.
George Russell is by far arguably the most consistent racer we have out of all 20 of them.
Yeah.
100%.
Only top 5 driver of every race.
Every single race, and he's always there. He's
been very consistent.
Very consistent.
Very much their number one.
But I was looking, and I think it hit me when I was watching the intro, and I saw his little side cross arm thing or whatever the fuck. He just looks more adult than he did last year. Last year all the years when he was with Williams, he was this kid who was just racing his heart out, and he's just doing the best he can with the shitty equipment, and he was doing really well. And now he's got the best equipment that a rich kid could ever want. And instead of being like a spoiled brat about it, he just looks like all the other adult British racers, like Nigel Mansell and fucking James Hunt, who was a little bit immature, but he just looks more adult. He just looks like this is where I was meant to be, but not in a smug way.
It always feels like when he's talking to his race director and all, whoever it always seems like he has a good rapport, I guess. It just seems like he's always in sync with whoever he's talking to.
He's not
they have a plan and they're following it, and
100%.
Like he's a 7-time world champion.
Yeah.
No, and he doesn't talk like he feels like he deserves to be there. He talks like he fucking earned to be there. And that's
exactly. What did Toto Wolff tell him? Good thing is you're going to be driving a Mercedes. Bad thing is you're going to be driving against Lewis Hamilton.
I love the Instagram take on that, and it's been edited. So the good news is you're going to be driving against Lewis Hamilton. The bad news is you're driving
Mercedes. Oh, that's rough.
Oh god.
So yeah, there was a lot of really good defending out there. I mean, but it's real easy to defend in Monaco.
Yeah, like I say, you just make your car as wide as possible, and you can hold a position for a very long time at that.
Right, 100%. And we already kind of touched on the debacle of the fucking whatevers, and so a lot of I've already said this before in the podcast, but a lot of times the race engineers, they have all this hard data, but it's not the same as being out there on the track.
Yeah.
And no one's going to know tires better than the racers racing on those tires.
No,
and I think they should have listened to Science a little bit better. I know why they didn't,
Well,
because
he said
Science
it-
doesn't have a great track record of finishing races.
Well, yeah,
But he said no, we should
Especially
wait till
in
the
Monaco.
hards
and
or
he
the
fucking
slicks.
waited and did it proper, and he finished second.
He got on the podium. Yeah. There was a meme that I saw that I really liked. It was when they were all getting the photo together, and he kind of awkwardly stood on the podium, and Horner was on like
Yeah, and he
on
had
the-
his
he had
foot
one
on
foot on the first, and it's like that's how close he was to getting first. Because man, not to jump too far ahead, but I mean we were already there, but there was a couple of times when they were winding down. There's 15 minutes left in the race because again they were on time limit. They didn't finish. That
I gotta say it was a 77 lap race. I think he only got 64.
something like that. They got
Something like
over 75% of the race completed, and I'll
So-
explain more of that later.
You get all points. Yeah.
Yes, and I'll explain a little bit more to that here in a second. But for like around the 15-minute mark, he was right on the fucking end of Checo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it looked. I thought Sainz was going to pass it.
I thought he was too.
I thought that was all part of the strategy. Those ladder laps, you're gonna get him, and it just didn't happen. And I
He
was,
just couldn't. He just didn't have the pace.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Like you have to be about 3 seconds faster
was-
than
I
your
mean-
person in front of you to pass on at Monaco.
Yeah, and plus Checo was just driving the race of his life, and
He was.
Red Bull just nailed the strategy on a fucking gamble.
Right.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
they went
I mean,
mediums too. They didn't go hard.
yeah, no, that
He was
was
on a medium tire.
like I said, yeah, that was a gamble, and it worked for him. They had to roll the dice for that race. and-
100%.
and
They
paid
put
off.
the right
Yeah.
man ended up in the right spot because they got the mediums, which don't run as long as the hards. Science is on the hards. The hards were like at the prime of hard
Yeah.
during that, but Checo.
Well, it was also
throughout
this compound, I think, that Pirelli put out for this race.
it was the softest 3 they have.
Yeah.
But
Which-
Checo throughout his whole career, even when he was in lower teams, has always been known as someone who can save his tires like no one else.
Yeah,
he
he's
showed that
very good
100%.
at tire management.
Super good at tire management. A lot of that comes from, lifting your foot off of the gas and the brake going into a turn and letting the downforce slow the car down. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's less friction on the tires.
Let the physics
And-
do the work.
100%. And that's what saves your tires. There's a lot more to it than that, but I'm not a race
Well,
car
yeah,
driver,
yeah.
so I'm not going to try and explain it to you.
Well, I
But
mean, yeah, there's ways of conserving your tires, and Checo has mastered.
he's mastered it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Monaco is a good representation of that for sure.
I
But,
will say,
One of the most fun things about the Monaco race, I think, was the Alonso train.
yeah,
Yes.
how awesome was that?
It was like he had his own plan, and he just said, "Fuck everyone behind me. I'm doing my own thing,"
I love
and
that,
it just worked out. Just he had a train behind him for like 30 laps. It was it was
It was a
it
huge.
was
fucking-
yeah.
the one
and
thing I
it
kept
was a
thinking about was
huge
Tyler's comment
gap.
about it being a parade.
Yeah, it was like I think like Alonso at one point, what was he 6th place? What did he end up finishing?
I think at one Hamilton was biting at him, and that was when it was like a 6th and 7th place race, I think.
Right.
So like the person at one point reversing like the time ticker on the screen, and like Alonso was like 32 seconds at one point behind the person in front of him. Like,
And then
which is-
everyone behind him was like 1.2 point
which
something,
at
point something,
Monaco
point
is like
something.
half a fucking lap. It's not a very long track.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
it's
Well-
it's a 2.2 kilometers, and no, it's way short.
I think it's just under
2.2
3.
miles
It's
or something.
almost
It's very
3.
short. Yeah, it's very short. Very short.
So here's something kind of funny. It's so funny, and it's a little ironic that I just remembered about it because I completely forgot about this happening. And when I was watching the race, and I watched the whole race, I didn't notice when this happened. And that's Magnussen being the first retiree.
Did
Yeah.
not notice that either.
He retired real quiet. They didn't fucking mention it. It was like 10 laps later that I fucking noticed because I was looking at like the things instead of just looking at the top 4 because I was really interested in Ferrari. And I was like, 19 drivers. Oh, because I was looking for Latifi being in last place, who Latifi the race. Just say that.
Yeah.
Fucking crashed and he blocked people, and he had he fucked the race for Sainz because he got the blue flag as Sainz was coming out of the pits and passed him, and then Sainz had an entire lap that he had
Yeah,
to try.
that
get
was
stuck
that
behind
was
him and
some
let Checo
that was
in
some
front of-
shit, man.
It's so fucking stupid.
I felt so bad. Like Sainz should have had so much breathing room,
I
and he
know.
ended up having just fucking a big wall of Latifi right in front of him.
So it was right as they were going up the hill after the first turn. And you go, so when you go up the hill, there's a wide left and then a sharp right, and you go down another hill. It's a slight right and then the slowest turn in the F1 season.
Yeah,
Hard down, almost
Which
a
is still
corkscrew,
like 40 miles an hour.
40,
too,
50
going
miles
up.
an hour.
oh
and,
yeah, that's
and,
a tight hairpin.
and then you kind of go slightly right, and then it's a hard right under the tunnel, right? And that's where Latifi got out of his way. And they're like, well, there's not a lot of places to pass on Monaco. I saw back markers getting out of the fucking way at the top of the hill all goddamn race. You cannot tell me Latifi.
There are plenty of places to get off
There's
the racing
plenty
line.
of places to get off the fucking
Yeah.
racing line.
There that I don't understand. I mean, I know it's a small track, but it's a small track if you're wanting to win.
Yeah. 100%.
If you want to get it the fuck out of the way, there's plenty of room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and then to talk about the only double retirement we had our red flag toward I'd say the last quarter of the race.
yeah.
When Mick Schumacher had a very frightening crash, man. He clipped that wall.
Yeah, he hit it
well,
good.
no, he didn't even clip the wall. He just spun around. It was like a weird, if you listen to the audio, it was almost like a downshift happened and the revs peaked and it spun the back tires, sent him around, and then it detached, I'll tell you about that in a second, why it detached.
It was very reminiscent of Ricardo's, but he was bouncing into that turn when he lost control. Yeah. I'm not sure what happened with Schumacher, but
I initially thought that he had a wet spot.
It was at the exact same spot.
Yeah. Because sometimes that'll happen, like especially later in the race, you might have a really wide racing line, but there might just be one or two spots of not standing water, but damp track that the slicks don't like.
Yeah, you're just not going to get that traction.
But really, it sounded like there was a weird downshift that happened, and the rev spiked, and it just sent him around. And so, if you'll notice, it seemed more violent than the crash really was. It wasn't. It was less G's than Verstappen hitting the wall at Silverstone last year.
Yeah, but it still detached his gearbox from the rest of his car.
That's a new safety feature.
Yeah, that's true. It's supposed to detach like that.
They added that safety feature after the crash with Grosjean not last year, the year before.
When he burst into flames.
So now all the cars, their gearbox will detach from the engine a little easier than it would have. So that's one of the main reasons. I mean, it wouldn't have happened if he didn't hit the wall so fucking hard. So the crash is nothing to say. Nothing. I mean, he walked away from it, but it's still it's a big crash. What I'm saying,
it's tough for Mick Schumacher because he's got the pedigree, obviously.
He's got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, is like Vettel even said, give the guy a break. He's worth more than he's showing on the track.
Oh, 100%.
It's I want to root for him so hard, but it's just like every race seems like something is just going against him, and he just can't. I don't know. I feel bad for Mick right now.
I do too. We kind of talked about it on another podcast where a lot of people were expecting Mick to just come in and just hit the ground running, but that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for a lot of people.
Just because your dad was a champion doesn't mean you're going to be a champion.
Well, and his dad kind of did that, but his dad, a lot of shit just kind of fell into his lap. He was doing really shitty, and then they bumped him up to a better car, and he was doing really well. He just had that sixth racing sense. Not to say Mick doesn't have it. He just hasn't unlocked it yet.
And I love racecraft and all that, but at the same time, I feel like these pit crews and these engineers and all these guys that are men and women that put these cars together and make them so fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't get enough credit.
They don't. And one driver that always, as much as we don't like him, he always says, big shout out to the people back in the factory, is Lewis Hamilton. He says it almost every race. It doesn't matter where he finishes. He first, just knows, last, whatever. He goes, hey, we did as well as we could. And it's mostly due to the people that build the car. I just drive the car. I didn't build it. I don't know anything about it. They build it. They make it good. I drive it, whatever.
I love hearing Hamilton quotes, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you just know how to talk to your your
shit.
people.
You're media trained.
Yeah, but if it's a bad race, he's the guy's like, well, let's just give up now.
Let's
No,
give up. Yeah.
We're gonna give up. Just save the engine. We
Yeah.
never give up, guys.
We never
give up.
Never give up.
Like, thanks for the fans. Thanks for this.
Unless it's 2 laps in and it's
You know, especially if you're
just
a new driver,
whatever.
if you're a new driver, and your race is kind of toast, you'll start seeing them do weird shit like pitting them extra, trying new tires. It's just more practice, you know.
Yeah.
Especially if your contract's not up that year, you're a brand new driver. Like, say you're in a Latifi situation, and it's 2 years ago, your contract's not up, you're dead last year. There's no way hell you're gonna get points. Though it's just more practice for next year, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so getting to the end of the race after those retirements, Zhao Guan Yu also had a retirement. I think there was only 3 cars that retired.
I think it was Magnussen retired first, who should have got racer of the day.
Yeah,
The
racer
driver
of the
of the
day,
day.
but driver of the day because he got retired first, and the rubber
I
army
voted
needs to get
for him.
behind that.
Yep.
Mick,
Where's the rubber army voting for him? I voted for him.
well, I don't watch the
watched
race
it
live,
late,
so I
couldn't
can't.
vote.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of funny to see like it will close in 15 minutes instead of like 15 laps. But anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we also had Schumacher retire after that shunt, and then
Yeah.
Zhao Guan Yu, who does not have a contract extension signed for any team yet for next year. On top of that, we had
He had was it a technical issue that
something like that. I
retired
don't
him?
really remember what happened. He had a bitch and drift that he kept in, but
That was impressive.
it was super impressive.
Yeah, he saved a lot of money
A lot of money
for his
yeah.
team
Yeah.
And
by not slamming into the wall.
unfortunately, I think that's starting to become a thing where they're looking at drivers and being like, man, you might be really good, but you're kind of a lot of fuck. And we got caps now, but we'll talk about that next week when we got nothing to talk about. So end of the race happens. We got Checo Perez wins in Monaco. That's like where everyone wants to win. Woo, Checo.
First Mexican to actually win the Monacan Grand
Yes,
Prix.
first Mexican. And then due to this win, he is now the most successful Mexican driver to ever grace us from with Formula One. So
So golf clap
to
for
Checo.
little Checo Perez. Good job.
Sainz coming in a good second.
Yeah,
Hard fought
that was-
second.
That was a good second.
He was
I
fucking
I was
there.
happy for him. I mean, he almost had the win.
He
but
could have.
It could have been his, but
Any other track
on
with
the
that
podium.
pace.
and not thank God there were no fucking gravel traps to beach the car.
Right.
No
I saw
shit.
so many memes about that out of the tunnel chicane. There's like a gravel pit there. But yeah, so no gravel traps, which is nice. And then Verstappen, of course, coming into third. He was going into this race, the champions leader, still currently is the champions leader. Leclerc.
What are you saying there, Dan? I'm gonna cut this out.
What I will say,
I didn't say
is,
anything about
do you remember the qualifying shunt that we were watching? And we're talking about like Leclerc spun ahead, then we saw a Red Bull spin off.
Oh
You guys
yeah,
remember
yeah.
Remember what order the cars stacked up in after that?
Oh,
Yes,
the exact
yes,
same they
so,
finished
yeah.
in.
It was Sainz, it was
That's
Checo,
so funny.
Sainz, then Verstappen, and then
Well,
Fernando Alonso wrecked like 2 corners before that.
I was listening to broadcast and they're like, Sainz should have slowed down. He never he saw the yellow flag. He knew what was going on.
No.
Then when you go to the onboard for Sainz's like view, and he got the yellow flag, and as soon as he got the yellow flag, he starts to take that turn, and he's got nowhere to go. So what do you do?
Well, what
So
have you
the
done?
pass on that
That's
one. Yeah.
I'm guessing that's why he didn't get any penalties on that one. But
It's really hard to like. It's just like what happened with Leclerc. You can't tell the drivers in the last fucking second.
Yeah.
Expect
like I say, I
to
saw that
react.
he's
Finish out
driving
your
through
top
that
10.
chicane or whatever, and he saw that yellow flag, and the next thing you know, there's there's Perez.
But to finish out your top 10 at Monaco, George Russell finishing 5th, which I think we've seen him finish all year, except for that one time he got on the
Yeah,
podium.
he's been
Yep.
consistently top 5 all year.
He's fucking
Never
killing it.
raced.
this
Only
year.
driver to finish top 5 all year.
Right. Lando Norris coming in 6th. 7th was Fernando Alonso. Pretty good finish for him. Lewis
Oh, it
Hamilton
was.
came in 8th. Valtteri Bottas made it in the points with 9. And Sebastian Vettel rounds out your top 10 with a 10th place finish. Which
Hey, yeah,
mean,
I like
for
I
all
like
the
seeing Vettel
people
getting some
keeping
points.
and for all the people keeping track at home, that's I think the fifth time how many times has he finished above his teammate? A lot this year, I think.
Who?
So Vettel.
Sam?
Vettel.
Oh,
Oh,
Vettel
yeah.
missed the first 3 races, so maybe I'm wrong with that.
No, yeah,
No, well, it's 'cause
Hulkenberg
Lance
was
Stroll is
on the first couple
not a
races
good
there.
racer. The only reason
Lance
Lance
Stroll
Stroll's in
sucks.
F1 is because
This
his
is
dad owns the
dad.
fucking team.
There
Yeah.
was an interview that happened with him a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know what the fucking context of it was, but he's giving this interview and he looks a little exasperated, and it's like up here where your mustache normally goes is all fucking wet, and he just looked like a little fucking punk ass kid that just got like a fucking fire truck for his birthday, like an actual fire truck for his birthday. His fucking rich father.
You heard his team radio thing.
I called it.
Ah!
One of my
Oh, so
predictions
right.
was that Lance Stroll was going to bitch about something on the radio because
Well,
he
I
does
mean,
that
that's-
every Monaco
That's
GP.
like that's painting with fucking broad strokes.
That's
by
a
saying
prediction
that.
for any race.
Yeah. It's like big
Fucking
saying
guys.
Max Verstappen's going to be upset about something over the weekend, or Lewis Hamilton's going to thank the fans. And
I
his
think the
team.
most
Like,
upset
Yeah.
person was Charles Leclerc when he said, "What the fuck?"
no,
Fucking
he
fuck.
said no. Yeah, and then at the end of it, no words.
No
No
words.
words.
Nope.
Ooh.
I
No,
got
yeah,
nothing to
that
talk-
I
yeah,
told
nothing.
Jake when I heard that, I was like, or not Jake, Tyler. I told Tyler, I was like, I think that's the name of the next podcast. No words.
No
No
words.
words.
Did you see the post race interview where Max Verstappen was? I don't even know if it was from this race. I just saw it on Instagram, and he's like complaining, or he said that Checo. I think it was this race because he said Checo said the Mercedes was like 6 or 3 seconds slower than it should have been. And Leclerc goes, well, maybe they'll make the safety car Ferrari and it'll be 3 seconds faster than us. Or something like that. But yeah, so that was the race. So
It was a
we
good
have,
race. It was
a good race.
an eventful race, especially
Mhm.
since last year, literally nothing happened.
Right. Well, that's Monaco for you. It sounds like Monaco might stay on the calendar, but that's still a debate. We'll talk more about that hopefully next week when more stuff comes out.
Yeah.
Speaking of next week, it's going to be more of a newsy episode. We'll try and find something to talk about. So, yeah, so that was the Monaco GP. It was a fun race to watch, even though it's a little boring at times. And we just might see it next year because there are still negotiations about whether it'll be on the calendar. So hopefully we'll
Yep.
find out more of that next week.
I
which we
honestly
will-
hope so. I think, I mean, it's iconic. It's a race that even if it's outdated, it should stay on the calendar. It just-
all the drivers want to keep it on there. Everyone
Yeah.
wants it to stay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That race
So-
is more of like a campaign rather than a battle. Like there's
Yeah,
a
it
lot-
really is.
Yeah. It's like the one
Um,
bright spot in the calendar where it's like, oh, it's Monaco. It's not just another race. You know
it's
what I
the
mean?
crown
Yeah.
jewel. It's the one where the
Yeah.
whole weekend really, I mean, the whole weekend really matters to everything. But for the casual fan, with this one race, the whole weekend really does matter. So
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
And
a
then,
good race, and I
it
hope
is.
everybody that listens enjoys and fucking. I know. I'm gonna
Oh
cut that.
no! Oh no! But anyway,
Yeah.
so wrapping it up. Yeah, the race is great. Next week we're going to be talking about the news mostly, and we'll try and find some update stories about Monaco and how whether or not it's going to stay on the calendar, because we are going to be between 2 race weekends. And then at the end of that podcast, we'll give our predictions for the next week. We like to do that the week before just to kind of keep it fresh in your minds as our predictions and whatnot. Well, at some point we're going to catch up with the fantasy league, which we have been really shitty about, but we got other stuff going
Yeah,
on.
we have.
So it's taking a back seat, but that's okay.
I mean, this
at-
is like you said, a grassroots thing.
It's a
We all work
grassroots thing. This is
full-time
our first
jobs.
Yeah.
go around. Yeah, we got so fuck you
Everyone's
guys if
working
you get pissed off
full-time
about it.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fuck you. Anyway, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and say I guess we'll do our social media shout outs. You
Yeah,
can
plug your social
find
medias.
me at the red Kennedy, the red_Kennedy 45 on Twitter, and the_red_ Kennedy 45 on Instagram. You can find the podcast on Twitter at the Preference Pod. I am posting on there daily. Most of them are retweets because I gotta jump on there and do something. But I am that is getting posted on regularly. So please tell your friends about that. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow the podcast on Instagram, which I'll set up tomorrow. So go find us. I'll give you the social media things next week. Or, like you found us right now on YouTube at the Preference Pod. So
we need to find like a social media person.
Yeah, maybe when we're making money, we can actually fucking pay someone.
Yeah, we'll hire an intern.
Yeah.
So Tyler,
give me coffee and put on our social medias.
Right. Tyler, why don't you tell us your social medias? Where can we find you at?
You can find me at t.k.66 on Instagram for lackluster Instagram content, and that's it. I don't check anything else. So
right. And Dave, where can we find you and all your fun stuff?
Well, you can find me obviously at the maximum_Dave on Instagram. You can also find me and my wife's travels around the country on Featuring Friday at Instagram. Other than that, I don't really do social media.
Well, that's fine. You can also find Dave and I play video games together
on
his other YouTube channel called Schnickel Fritz, spelled SN, the number 1 KKLEFR, the number 1 TZ, because he's a fucking maniac. So find us on there. He hasn't posted anything in a while, but we're gonna be working on some stuff. We got some stuff in the pipeline.
I'll say it's been a minute, but we're gonna put some fun stuff out pretty soon.
We're gonna put some fun stuff out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And for those of you that have been listening since the first episode, we have not checked in with Dave on where he's at for so long because he's been in the same spot. So once he starts traveling around again, we'll start checking in with him again. But so thank you so much for listening to the Tire Preference Podcast this week. We really appreciate you tuning in. The 5-6 people that tune in. I watched the thing a couple times.
You guys that are still tuning in, Dave's in the same spot. If you get a picture of a piece of Dave's trailer, there is a prize for you.
There is.
Yep.
A nice crisp high five.
But we don't have Patreon followers, so we got to backtrack the whole sending you to a race thing. But you got a high five for me.
Quick update: we are still working on getting ourselves put on Podbean, so that is in the works. We are active with that. It's just taking a little bit longer because of reasons. So
we all fucking work real jobs all the time. And
we
shit,
do.
So
We this is a hobby more than a job.
Yeah,
we got going on.
Yeah,
so.
Like I said, this is we're doing our best.
We're doing our best. But with that, let's go ahead and do our sign off real quick. I'm going to go ahead and say keep it within track limits. Don't get that black and white flag. You don't need no penalties. Just keep within the track limits and do your best.
Just fucking hammer it, bud. Ignore those braking zones. Just
hit that right pedal.
Get full send. Hit the loud pedal all the time.
Well, usually I'd say hit the loud pedal, but you gotta fucking slow it down, man. Slow it down. Hit those braking points.
Find the braking zones.
And be sure to reserve your KOA campground a couple weeks in advance in case it's fully booked and you won't be able to.
Shit fills up quick.
And follow the fucking rules of the KOA while you're out.
We are under a red flag right now, so be very careful with your fires.
Yeah, no burning stuff. No cigarette butts.
No fires, and quiet hour begins at 10 p.m., but have some fun.
All right, you guys, thank you so much again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
All right, see you guys next week.
All right, love you guys.